Hello, welcome to That's Church, and happy Halloween. I'm Emily, here with my sister Ashlie. We have a special episode for you today, just for the occasion. But before we dive in, we want to thank everyone for the incredible support for our very first That's Church experience. We're excited to announce that it sold out. We are so excited. We can't wait to share all the details with you next week after the event actually happened. That will happen we will share that with you on November 13th when we release our episode with Onkar and Bryn, one of this weekend's presenters. Today, we have a fascinating episode with Maddie, a Pagan Christian Witch. Yes, you heard that right. Maddie blends Christian beliefs with her practices in paganism and witchcraft, a truly unique combination that challenges a lot of the stereotypes people might have. In this conversation, we explore her journey from the LDS faith to paganism, her love for nature, her thoughts on women's empowerment, and how she incorporates her Christian beliefs into her witchcraft. We weren't quite sure that it was appropriate to put this out on Halloween and advertise it as such, so we asked Maddie, and she explained that Halloween, or Samhain, I'm sure I'm saying that wrong, holds deep historical significance in the pagan tradition. So settle in. Let's explore the incredible, nuanced worldview Maddie brings to her spirituality. Our cute friend that would like to stay anonymous, we're going to call her Maddie. She was once a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and is now a practicing pagan. We are so excited to have her here with us. She was actually our first person that agreed to be interviewed on our podcast, and we just now connected with her. So we're really excited to have her in this season 2, which is kind of perfect timing because it fits better here. So Ashlie met her at a store, just walking around a store. They just met and
complete strangers.
Mm-hmm. Not quite complete strangers. I did recognize you. I was like, you look so familiar. Where do I know you from? And it was because I follow you on Instagram. So,
yes, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And we had such a great conversation.
Yeah.
And I told you were one of the first people in general that I told about this podcast before we had even created it. And I was like, you were like, oh, well, I'm a witch. And I was like, give me your number. I was like, we need to make this happen because we need to interview you at some point. So we're just so happy to have you on season 2.
I am so happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And before we started, we were asking Maddie the difference between paganism and Wicca, and apparently there is a difference. So we'd love for her to kind of explain that. I also am really curious, if you don't mind sharing, and maybe this is too long of a story to share, but why do you want to remain anonymous? Is that too personal?
No, not at all. In fact, that's kind of something that I wanted to touch on.
Good.
So, especially in Christian communities here in Utah where we live, there's a lot of stigma against people who practice witchcraft. There is a lot of stigma against people who identify as pagan. And so the reason that I want to remain anonymous is because I'm not exactly out of the broom closet to most people I know, per se. So, just for like a personal safety thing, like this isn't something I've talked to my family about quite yet. And, there's a lot of negative stigma around the religion that I practice, unfortunately. And I kind of like one of like my biggest goals in talking with you two about this today is to kind of eliminate that stigma, help people understand that like witchcraft isn't something to be afraid of. It's not something that is bad or evil necessarily, although there are some people who definitely use it that way. Most people don't. So that's the reason I want to stay anonymous. It's stigmatized, and not everybody I know would be comfortable with knowing that I am pagan or a witch, as however you'd put it.
I would say that some Christianity can be used in an evil way as well. So
absolutely.
I think it's great that you're eliminated the stigma.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I was thinking about, I think it was one of the 10 commandments, the one where it says, thou shalt not take the Lord's name in vain. And I was like, that's not about saying, oh my God. It's about identifying as one of God's children, one of his servants, but not acting like one, you know?
I agree. And I am so glad that you said that because it really is it's so different, like you said, than what we think taking the Lord's name in vain really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So Wicca is a specific, it's like an actual, how do I say this? Organized religion. Wicca is organized. Paganism is slightly less organized, and then witchcraft is a part of different religions. And so Wicca was established by some British dude in like the 19th century, I think. And the reason that I don't associate with Wicca personally is because there is a lot of there's some like racial undertones to it that I don't necessarily agree with. Particularly leaning towards like white supremacy, which you know.
Yeah.
Not every Wiccan who practices follows like that traditional path, and that's not to say like if you're a Wiccan you're a racist. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that the founder of it had some problematic views, which is why I don't associate with it. Now there are bits and pieces of Wicca that I really enjoy. I really love the divination side of Wicca, which is essentially like fortune telling, but a little less woo woo and a little more actually spiritual and psychological than people tend to assume.
Cool.
Yeah. So paganism is the worship of pagan gods. Now, I identify as pagan, but I also still technically identify as a Christian. When someone practices witchcraft, it's very common for someone to have a deity or deities that they worship and consider like their patrons. Like some Catholic folks have patron saints that are like the ones that they specifically pray to, you know. I consider Emmanuel or Jesus Christ one of my like my main deity. And there's a lot of controversy in pagan and like witchcraft circles that says, oh, you can't be a Christian and a witch. Yes, you can. I'm right here. Don't.
Yeah.
Like I exist. Hello.
Here's the evidence.
Yep.
Yes.
Proof here.
So yeah, there's one of my other deities that I don't necessarily worship, but I feel kind of represents me really well is Athena. I love the mythology and the idea of the goddess Athena. One of the animals that's associated with her is owls, and that's something that has just always popped up in my life here and there. Like people always give me like owl gifts, and I've never said like, oh, you know, I love owls, like they're my favorite. I mean, I do, but they're not my favorite, you know.
Wow.
So it's sort of just like a little sign like, hey, you're one of Athena's, you know.
That's cool.
Wow.
One time, so I used to live in Washington State, and near my house we had this state park, which was like just this gorgeous old growth forest, ferns, moss, tall pine trees, the works, like straight out of one of the Twilight movies, you know. I was running and I was wearing a baseball cap with my hair in a ponytail, and an owl, I must have ran way too close to its nest or something. An owl swooped down and snatched the hat off my head. And I picked up my hat and I ran the opposite direction. I was like, I gotta get out of here. But
Shut up.
I'm not a sign seeker, but I did take that as a sign. Like a, hey.
Yeah.
We're keeping an eye on you.
I've never
you know?
heard of that happening. It
was terrifying.
I bet.
It was
I bet.
So spooky. But yeah.
That's one of those stories where you're like, people might not believe you. You're like, this happened.
I was by myself. So like, if you don't believe me, whatever.
Wow.
Like, God is my witness.
I've actually heard that happening to people. But
yeah.
I don't know. I don't remember why. If whether they think it's like a bunny jumping. I've heard of other people getting their hat ripped off. But it's just so like, it's kind of like getting struck by lightning. You're like,
Yeah.
Did that really just happen?
It was like, what the heck? Hello?
Wow. That is so
That
I
is
totally
cool.
believe in
I
those
like
kinds
it.
of signs, especially
Yeah.
in nature. I
Mm-hmm.
am a big
Mm-hmm.
believer of that.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Our mom is all about hawks, and when our grandparents died, like, she saw a bunch of hawks flying over her, and also I
Mm-hmm.
had a friend in when I was 16 that passed away from cancer, and right after she passed away, I was, like, bawling in my car, and this hawk flew over my car, and
Mm-hmm.
I was like, "Thank you, Taryn."
Mm-hmm.
Like, it gave me the peace that she forgave me for anything that I felt like she needed to, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
so I love all that stuff. I
That's
think it's
so
super
tender.
interesting.
Yeah. Omens
Mhm.
are a huge thing in like
Mm,
witchcraft and in paganism. Um,
mm.
and
That's cool.
I think that regardless of what your religion is, sometimes whoever or whatever it is you believe in will send you little like I think the Mormon term for it is tender mercies. Excuse me, the LDS
Sure.
term for it is tender
Yeah.
mercies, you know?
Yeah.
Or
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that makes sense. I really like Greek mythology too. I love
mhm.
learning about, like, the Greek gods, and,
Mhm.
um, I'm sure there's something to it. I think it's
Mhm.
really interesting.
Me
Yeah.
too.
I love that.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the beginning of your faith. You mentioned growing up LDS.
Mhm.
So what was your life like in the LDS faith?
Um It was hard. So, growing up, my mom was always a devout member.
Mm.
She still is, and I love her and I respect her for it. Like her faith is something that has always been so beautiful to me, and I think is one of the
Mm.
reasons that I have refused to let go of my Christianity. My testimony of my Savior is something that I have learned from my mother, and I'm so grateful for. Um,
Love.
Now, when I was a kid, my dad was a drug addict. For like the first 10
Mm.
years of my childhood, he was on painkillers because he got into a car accident that broke the growth plates in his wrist. And
Oh
yeah, tricky. So
gosh.
there was a lot of like kind of adverse childhood experiences because, you know, growing up with a drug addict isn't easy or good or something that anyone should really ever have to experience. Um, and for the record, my father has been sober for, I think, almost like over a decade and a half now. I think he's going on like year 16 or 17 or something. So,
Wow,
um,
congrats. That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah, he's one of my favorite people. And
Mm.
so like kind of growing up in the church where one parent was in and one parent was hardly even present church wise or otherwise,
Mhm.
it had some effects. Now, I'm the oldest of five, and like for a long time, like when I was younger, probably up until the time I was 13 or 14, I was what you'd consider devout. Like I participated in young women's primary programs, everything like that.
Mhm.
When I was 14 or 15, we moved from Utah up to Washington State. And that was difficult and kind of the beginning of my faith transition. Um, and when I moved, one of my friends in Utah, like shortly after I moved, about a year, one of my friends in Utah died by suicide. And that was really hard. That was one of the things that kind of set off my faith crisis. Right? It was
Mm.
really, really difficult.
I'm so sorry.
It was hard
So
being like
awful.
15 years old and like losing someone important to you and
Mhm.
you know not I don't know my it's interesting because my family dynamics at that point were kind of tricky too.
Mhm.
I'm the oldest of five, and so like I've always been expected to be like on my best behavior, not lashing out, helpful, thoughtful, quiet. And
Mhm.
um so truthfully, like I didn't really get to talk about any of my feelings or my issues with my family. On top of that, I was
Mm.
dealing with undiagnosed depression, anxiety, and depressive disorder called PMDD, which stands for premenstrual dysphoric disorder. If you don't know what it is, give it a quick Google. But
Okay.
so I was dealing with like the loss of a friend, undiagnosed mental health issues, and on top of that, I was realizing that I am queer. So like growing up in the church as a closeted queer kid is, first of all, not easy. Second of all, a trip. And so like it was just kind of like a conglomeration of like grief and anxiety and of shame that kind of just made me really, really afraid to be who I was in the context of the LDS faith, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And you know, people have left for smaller things and bigger things, and you know, it's different for everybody. But one thing that particularly did not help was that I sought help from my bishop at the time. And when I went into his office to be like, hey, I'm suicidal, I need help, please, can you refer me to a therapist like you referred my parents to? He was like, oh, you're fine, there's nothing wrong, like you're good. And I was like,
Oh
okay,
my
all right,
gosh.
I'll see myself out, goodbye. Yeah, it's not a great experience.
And that takes a lot of bravery to ask, you
It
know?
was
Mhm. Mhm.
horrifying. It was horrifying.
Especially as a teen approaching an adult, and an adult that you are expected to trust fully.
Mm-hmm.
That's really devastating.
Yeah.
So it was so painful. And the fact, like, I think at that point one of his daughters was struggling with her own mental health issues, and he was like, you should just be glad that you don't have the same mental disorder that my daughter does. And I was like,
Oh, no. Oh,
You're different people, and
we're different
yeah.
people.
Oh,
different
both.
situations.
Yeah, both things can be valid. That
Right.
Yeah.
is, oh, so frustrating. I'm
Yeah,
so sorry.
super frustrating. Well, and like
Mhm.
I didn't want to push it because I felt bad for his daughter. Like I knew what was going on with her. And so like I felt kind of ashamed to ask for help in the first place because I was like, oh, he's
Right.
already dealing with worse stuff
Oh
personally,
my
Right.
you know.
gosh.
Then you have
Yeah.
to like doubt yourself and second guess yourself.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
so
not fair. I'm so sorry.
asking for help is a lesson that will be lifelong for me, I think, unfortunately. But,
Mm.
you know,
Oh, no.
yeah. So, it was just kind of like
So
a
sorry.
combination of
I
all of
hope
those
you can
things.
change that narrative.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope
Yeah.
that narrative can be changed in your mind, genuinely, because
Yeah.
it is so important to be able to ask for help and to know that you're valid. And
Mhm.
um, yeah, I'm so
Mhm.
sorry.
Yeah.
And hopefully he learned later on. I'm always thinking about those people like, oh, tell me that you regretted that in the future, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, like it's none of my business. We're all here to learn lessons, and whether or not he learned his from that experience with me is between him and the Lord, you know.
Mhm.
I've like it hurt, but I've forgiven and tried to move on and kind of rewrite narratives, and
Yeah.
whether or not he thinks about it still like 9-10 years later is none of my business. So
Mhm.
that is a great way
That's
to put
good.
it. And it sounds like you have done a lot of healing and are
I've
just
Mhm.
a very
tried
forgiving person. Yeah.
years of therapy.
I
Good.
think
Yeah,
healing never really
I'm so
quite
glad.
ends. I think it is a roller coaster, and
it
that's
is.
okay.
It's
That's okay.
nonlinear. Yeah. Hmm.
Yes, absolutely.
Mhm.
Um,
And I'm glad
so
you're getting the help you need.
Me too.
so it sounds like you've had some struggles and maybe disagreements within the LDS faith. Do
Hmm.
you have any struggles within your new belief system?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
So one thing that I love about paganism is that it's not a one size fits all sort of deal.
mm,
It's not necessarily like cherry picking, but it is
mhm,
like a very individualistic thing. It's very, very similar to the whole like personal revelation idea within the LDS faith,
mhm,
which I love a lot. Um, but yeah, there are certain there are bits and pieces that I don't agree with. I think the main one is that so in witchcraft there is this idea of something called the threefold rule, which is all about karma. And believe me, I believe in karma.
mm,
However, the threefold rule states that whatever you put into the world will come back to you 3 times over, which is sort of an encouragement to only put positivity out. Now, the reason I disagree with this is because it doesn't always work that way.
Mhm.
Um, and in my personal experience. Like,
Sure.
the example I'm thinking of is like, I try very, very hard to put out as much good energy as I can. Am I good at it? Not really. I am like a negative Nancy. I am a pessimist. I don't really like, I mean, I love people, but I don't like them very much. And
So you're human then.
oh yeah, totally. But yeah, I like if I got 3 times the negativity that I put out, I would be in a way worse situation than I am.
Oh, that's so funny to think
And
about. Yeah.
to be fair,
Yeah.
if I received back the threefold the amount of positivity I put out, I would have so few issues. And that is just not the case.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I don't agree with. There's some more stuff that's a little, I guess, I don't know if doctrine is the right word, but it's a little more doctrinally heavy that I can't really go into right now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that makes me wonder, is there like a building that you go to or a congregation or a meeting place or a group of people that you meet with? Like
That's a great
or a
question.
leader? Like,
Um,
yeah.
so pagans and other folks who practice witchcraft oftentimes meet up in a group called a coven. I personally am a solitary practitioner. So I work by myself, with myself. All of my um, spiritual things are very personal to just me. And it does get lonely, but at the same time, there are opportunities to share with the people who are really close to me. My best friend is like kind of a part of it. She's got like 3 cats, and she's always like sometimes she'll call me and be like, "Hey, my cat swallowed a string. Can you light a candle for him just so he like passes it okay, so I don't have to spend like
Aw.
$4,000 at the vet?" And I'm like, "Yep, yep, you got it."
Wow.
Got it.
So,
Good friend right there.
I've also kind of shown like my significant other bits and pieces of my spirituality, but because it's so personal, it's not something I practice in a group. I have thought of joining a coven, but um, it's kind of difficult because it's so stigmatized. It's hard to find. So, mhm.
How does one find a coven in Utah?
Facebook, probably. I
Okay.
don't know.
Good old Facebook.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, cool.
There's a lot of like metaphysical shops like around Utah Valley. There's Crohn's Hollow in Salt Lake. There's Dancing Crane also in Salt Lake. Like just a bunch of like little shops here and there that oftentimes have resources. So if you're a solitary practitioner who's looking to get into more of a coven or group setting, that would probably be the best place to start.
Okay.
Good to know.
Interesting. Yeah.
So, what initially drew you to paganism? And could you talk about some of the practices
Mhm.
within paganism?
I'm going to be so honest with you. It was divination that got me into it. I've been studying astrology for probably 11 years now. Um,
Cool.
there's so much. So people have a tendency to just like write off astrology as like BS nonsense. But I believe in a creator. And because I believe in a creator who created everything and everyone, the creator who created the stars, who also created us, most definitely put meaning into the stars. Now, the stars don't control things. The planets don't have a say in like what we're supposed to eat for lunch. That's nonsense. However, astrology is a way to tell the time. Now, even in LDS spheres, I know that there are like phases of the moon carved on, I think, a couple different temples. Like the symbolism of the sun, the moon, and the stars in the LDS faith is also present. And the thing that got me into astrology was just curiosity about my personality and other people's personalities. I've always been really fascinated with the psychology of personality. And so it started with like Myers-Briggs personality types, colors personality types, and kind of went into astrology. From there, from astrology, I kind of got interested in oracle cards and the tarot, which is like also one of those things that's highly stigmatized. Like, I got a couple of tarot decks from my uncle, who is also a pagan, a witch, and my parents threw them in the trash because they were like, we don't want these in our house. And I was like,
that happened to me too. My mom stole mine and threw them away. I cannot believe that happened to you also.
Yeah,
That's
no.
crazy.
Well, and like the thing is like some of the imagery on the tarot is like classical art. So there is some like nudity. And so my mom was like, no boobs, bye, and tossed them in the trash. So
that's funny.
Yeah. But if my mom knew how many tarot decks I had now, she would probably shake her head.
You have to burn the whole place down.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So from there, it went into tarot. I love palm reading. I love, so there's like, the predecessor of tarot is runestones, which is like a Norse and Celtic art, like divinatory art that has the Futhark alphabet on it, which is the Norse alphabet. And each stone, each symbol symbolizes a different thing. And being able to connect those symbols with what's going on in your own life or whoever you're reading for's life can be a really powerful tool in giving you some guidance and direction on where to go. Now, because that element of Christianity is something I still hold on to, I also like to follow the spirit when using divination, which is different from Christians and different from other witches. So I guess like spiritually, I'm a bit of an odd bird. I know I'm not the only one, but I know that I'm like one of a small handful.
One of few. Wow.
Yes.
I kind of love that though. It goes into what Emmy and I both believe, that spirituality is so individual.
Right.
This
It
is
is,
just
and it's
a
meant to be.
representation of that.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's divination that got me into witchcraft. I've always loved nature. Like when I was a little girl, I loved being in the garden. Like when I was 3 or 4, my mom would wake up, I wouldn't be in my bed, and she'd like go running around the house and then open the front door, and I'd be like in the garden up to my elbows in dirt, you know? So like building houses for roly-polies and catching caterpillars, and like nature has always just been something that is so sacred to me. And I think that's one reason why moving up to Washington State was so important for my own faith journey, was because the area that we lived in, surrounded by nature. Like I said, we lived right next to that state park where the owl attacked me, and like just these gorgeous forests right by the sea, like by the Puget Sound.
Wow.
It was like a 3/4 mile walk from my house to the beach. So
magical.
That's so cool.
So
I love that. We love nature too.
Nature is what got me into paganism.
Wow. Those are some beautiful like connections made.
Yeah.
That is, that sounds like my daughter too. She's always out catching bugs and stuff. Maybe she'll be a witch one day.
Yep. I could see it. I could see it with her. That's cool. Cool is the word today. This whole paganism is cool.
We always have a word that we say like a million times.
Like a word or a phrase for each episode. This one is cool, which I don't think we've had before.
Oh, hell yeah.
It just fits, you know? It just works.
You're very cool. Can you recount the most powerful experience you've had within your faith? And do you call it faith?
Yeah, it is a faith system, just like many other religions are. You know, there's a lot of really powerful experiences. This one's kind of a silly example, but I used to work at this call center, and this girl asked me to read her palm. And like one of the lines in her palm kind of indicated that she was a little spacey. And I was like, hey, are you like bad at parking? Because this line right here tells me that you don't pay attention or you have some spatial awareness issues or something. And she's like, yeah, actually, I'm pretty terrible at parking. She leaves to go to lunch, and then she comes back with a Post-it note that says, please park more considerately next time. And she hands it to me, and she says, look what I found on my car. And I was like, listen,
Oh my gosh.
I'm really
Mic
sorry.
drop. Like,
Yeah.
Wow, that is crazy.
One of my favorite practices in my faith that seems to work almost every time is my work with animals. So, like I mentioned, my friend with her cat, and her cat having like health scares or going missing. It's common like practice for me to put a piece of tiger's eye, which is a type of crystal, on my windowsill and light a candle. There's more to it than that, but essentially it's like a blessing to ask God or whoever's gods you worship to bring safety and healing and peace to that animal. And that's one that I have had success with every single time, no matter what. My cat went missing for 6 days, and he is an inside cat. And we were living on an island that was full of owls and coyotes up in the Pacific Northwest. And I was like, he's for sure dead. Like, he's gone. And like, I was just like tearfully like setting out my tiger's eye in the windowsill and lighting a candle for him every night. And he did come back. He made it back. So he was fine.
wow.
A little skittish, a little worse for wear, a little dirty, but
Sure.
he came back in
for
one
sure.
piece.
Oh,
Wow,
so
that is amazing though. Wow, what a gift. Like, oh, that's huge. I'm gonna call you if my animals need help.
Okay, please do. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's specific to animals.
Yes. I actually have a pet jumping spider. His name is Arlo. And like you've possibly heard of like the concept of familiars from like Harry Potter or like other witch related media. The idea of a familiar or having an animal companion who is like an energetic balance for you is one of my favorite parts of my faith as well. And so Arlo is kind of my familiar. I mean, they're a spider, so they're not particularly self-aware, but they're very calming to be with and to handle. So,
I've never heard of that before. Familiar. Oh,
yeah.
I'm gonna remember that. That is.
Isn't that like the owl on Harry Potter? It's the or no.
Hedwig is Harry's familiar. Crookshanks is Hermione's. Ron's is that one creepy dude. What's his name? I don't remember.
Wow,
that's the only place I've heard it.
Yeah, I'm not big into Harry Potter. I need to be though. I need to get into it because
I was big into it until it turned out that J.K. Rowling was kind of problematic, which like
I heard about this.
Yeah, separating the art from the artist, but also like when she's actively like against people that are a part of my community, it's hard for me to, get into her stuff.
Oh,
I digress.
I don't.
Yeah, no, I know that's heartbreaking for a lot of queer people though, and it's just so unfortunate. But yeah, hopefully people can separate those things.
This is familiar, but I don't remember exactly. I'm gonna go look it up.
Yeah, yeah, I know we could talk about that, but we'll get back on track. But yeah, look it up for sure. It's interesting.
Interesting. Okay, it's too bad.
So our next question. So considering the limitations on women's roles within the LDS Church, have you felt a shift in your empowerment, maybe as a woman in this new faith?
1,000%. 1,000%.
I was waiting for that. I was like, this is going to be an easy question.
This is Ashley's question. She was very excited about it.
So that's one thing in the LDS faith that I've really struggled with is like, sure, women can, birth children, but that's not the same as having the priesthood. And I know that there's a lot of people who try and like, are like, it's okay, I don't need the priesthood. I'm done with excuses. Like, so much love and respect for the members of the church. That's one thing with the church that I really have an issue with, and it pisses me off. Now, in witchcraft, in traditional paganism, there's this idea of the goddess and the god. Two deities, one of female and one of male gender. And the one who is in charge is the goddess. She's like the main person. So,
Ooh, love that.
there's a lot of focus on feminine energy, the divine feminine rage, a lot of stuff that focuses on femininity and womanhood within the pagan faith, which is something as a woman and as a queer woman that is so beautiful and so important to me. There's this is not the last time I've used the word nuance, and it won't be the last time I've used the word nuance in this conversation, but there is a lot of nuance to like the love and appreciation that is innate in that faith. That I ascribe to, which I really love. There's I have a lot of issues with the female oppression that kind of happens within church circles, and you know, that might be a little controversial of me to say. Like, I know there are a lot of people who are in like total denial that there's any oppression happening at all. But there is.
You can say it. This is your episode. You can say whatever you want.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a feminist. Like that's not something that I'm ashamed to admit. I am for the equality of all people. And when it comes to identifying as a feminist, I feel like a lot of people are like, "Oh, I'm not a feminist. Like I don't want just women to be in charge. I want it to be equality." Like that's what I'm talking about.
Right.
Like that's what feminism is. It's about equality.
Yes.
And so
it's not about dogging on men or saying bad things about men.
There are so many men in my life who I would literally take a bullet for. Now, do I necessarily like what culture has done for the ideas of what men should be? Hell no. Absolutely not.
Right.
But I 100% believe that in order to find that bit of equality, it's really, really important to, I guess, kind of re-sanctify what femininity is. There are so many bits and pieces of femininity that society has taken and perverted and twisted and made bad or trite or shallow that are truly and really sacred. So that's a part of my faith that I truly love, is just the respect for women and femininity that it has.
Love it. I'm in. I'll take it.
Yeah, you converted us. Awesome. That is so. I love hearing those words.
Sorry.
Yeah. Get out the tiger's eye. I don't know how baptism works.
Yeah. Do you do something like that that's reminiscent of baptism?
So, I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about this. So I know that Joseph Smith, like when it came to like temple ordinances, drew a lot of inspiration from like Masonic rituals, things like that. Like that's what I've heard anyway. I don't know if it comes from like pro LDS or anti LDS rhetoric, so I'm a little hesitant to really state an opinion on that. But there's something called the fivefold kiss in paganism or witchcraft that is, I think, now I only did baptisms for the dead when I went to the temple. I haven't had my temple work done, and so I don't know much about endowments, initiatories, sealings, etc. But I believe there's something in the temple that is kind of similar to that.
Okay, so quick disclaimer. The only experience I have with the LDS temple is doing baptisms for the dead and also doing like a pre-dedication temple tour. I think it was the Draper Temple that I went to when I was a kid. But there's a part of witchcraft / paganism that's called the fivefold kiss. which is a sort of initiation. Not everybody goes through it. It's not like a necessity or anything, but it's essentially a blessing where the priest or priestess of witchcraft will perform like 5 different spots on your body from toes to head of a blessing. And I don't think there's actual smooching involved. So,
So I haven't had it done.
nah, and I don't really feel the need to, you know?
Interesting.
Yeah. It's really interesting.
I just wanted to say really quickly that when you were talking about Joseph Smith before and the like how there are symbols on the temples in Salt Lake, there's the sun and the moon and I think stars. I don't remember all of their significance. I remember I looked this up at one point, but now it slipped my mind. But I love, and I don't know if this is, again, same as you, I don't know if this is 100% true or not, but I saw it on a video one time. They were talking about how Joseph Smith was really into star signs and astrology. And honestly, like, and in the video, they were kind of pointing this as a negative, like towards the LDS faith. And I was like, actually, I love this. And I love this connection. And it just like, probably similar to you, I feel a lot of similarities with feeling spiritual in nature and stuff to you. And that also was something that I was like, this just makes me like, I mean, there are a lot of things that Joseph Smith did that are problematic that we won't get into, but because we could be here for a while. But that is one thing that I learned about that I like as an adult that I was like, wow, I wish I had known this sooner. This is actually really cool to me.
Yeah. So paganism is often described as an earth-centered religion. So we kind of already touched on, I mean, we obviously touched on a lot of nature and stuff, but just like super briefly, could you elaborate on what that means?
Absolutely. So, one of the core tenets of paganism and of witchcraft is that humans are a part of nature. Like, we are just as much a part of it as the trees and the flowers and the animals and the stars. We're not against it. We're not meant to be destroyers of the earth. We're meant to be stewards of the earth. Which is one reason why there are a lot of witches and pagans who happen to be vegetarian or vegan or climate change activists, things of that nature. Another thing about like the earth relatedness of the religion is that it's kind of a global thing. There are a lot of people who practice the same things that I do that borrow from different faiths and different religions. So a good example of that is my faith in Christ, my testimony of my Savior. That's something that I have from Christianity. Now, there's a practice called smoke cleansing or saning that's from Celtic paganism, like from Ireland and Scotland and Wales, that I use. One thing that a lot of witches will do is burn white sage, which some people think that's okay, and other people are like, that is a closed practice thing that is meant just for Native Americans. I'm kind of in that second school of thought, but no judgment if you use white sage from me because it's not mine, you know. So one of the things about the global element of that religion is that there are beautiful pieces of other people's faith that you can agree with and incorporate into your own practice, without feeling like you're like going astray or being punished for it. If that makes any sense.
Interesting. Yeah.
I remember going on a hike as a little girl with Mom, and we were walking through the trail and we saw a group of people in a circle, like back tucked into the woods. And they kind of were, I think they were chanting something. Anyway, my mom, bless her heart, at that point in her life was like, devil worshippers, you know, like she was scared of them. And so she like directed us down the mountain away. And so thinking about this conversation with you, I haven't thought of that memory in years, but it sparked when you were talking about covens and going out and like meeting together. And I thought how sad that was probably just a misinterpretation of a coven going and enjoying their spirituality in nature. So I guess that's a lesson. Mom, if you're listening, you did the best you could with what you had at the time. Hopefully you learned better.
I say that to all the time. And that's one thing about a coven that I really miss out on is like communing with other people in nature can be such a beautiful and sacred thing. Communing by yourself can also be a beautiful and sacred thing, but you can also get attacked by owls. So, pros and cons to each.
We'll call that like a love tap. I think that's probably what
Yeah.
I'm trying to do.
It was just like a
little harsh, but love tap.
Yep.
No, it works.
Shoot. That is so funny. And
Yeah.
sad. I'm glad you're okay. Are there any thoughts on your mind right now that don't have to do with, they don't have necessarily have to do with paganism or with your faith or anything, but just like it could be a show, anything, like what's been on your mind lately?
I'm working part-time and going to school part-time, and the course that I'm taking at the moment is about cloud computing. So that's what's been on my mind. I'm just like trying so hard to pass this course. I mentioned that my dad is a tech guy, and like I was really curious about like what it is that he does, and he works with like cloud computing. So that's what I've kind of been into lately.
Sounds fascinating.
Interesting. What is that?
It's a pain. The textbook I have to read is incredibly dense.
Learning about information in the cloud, like how it gets stored and stuff?
Yep. So it's so right now it's just like kind of an introductory course. The goal of the classes that I'm taking is like a certificate to be a cloud practitioner, which essentially means kind of giving people ideas on how to use cloud storage and cloud applications to better their businesses. So like right now I'm just learning how the cloud works, and it is so confusing. I'm trying my best. Wow. But yeah.
I can't imagine. I have no interest, but I think it's cool that you do.
I was just gonna say the cloud seems more unattainable to me. Like it seems more like what people would like call witchcraft than witchcraft, because it's so, my brain cannot even comprehend
like
where things go into that cloud.
It's magical.
Witchcraft is so simple. Like there are different associations with like crystals that symbolize and help with different things. Like for example, amethyst is really good for sleep or for comforting the bereft. Blue lace agate is for helping open up your throat chakra and help you speak your mind and speak your truth a little better. There are different herbs like cinnamon is to bring wealth. Lavender is to bring peace and healing. Hyssop is actually one of my favorite herbal associations, because when Christ was on the way to Calvary, carrying his cross, he was given a sponge soaked in hyssop and vinegar to help soothe some of the pain that he was dealing with, so he could actually carry his cross up the hill. Catnip tea is really good for menstrual cramps. Just a little tip for my girlies.
Yes.
Yeah. So like that's another part. Not to like backtrack too much, but that's another part of like the earth side of things. Like things that come from nature are so integral in our practice.
That's really cool. There's a place near me, and I wish I could think of the name of it, but they have like a crystal cave, or not crystal, it's the salt, Himalayan salt.
Is it Synchronicities?
Yes. I think so. Is that the one in Sandy?
Yep.
One in Provo and one in Sandy. Yes, Synchronicity. Yep. And they have like a bunch of those like crystals and healing things like that. They have a lot of that stuff that so there, it feels like there's a lot of overlap with paganism or Wicca, which is really cool. Like you're kind of dabbling in different areas.
Yeah, Buddhism is actually one of the philosophies that I've kind of taken a lot from. One of the ideas that is just so wild to me is that desire is the root of suffering. That's one of the pieces of Buddhism that has always been so fascinating to me.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much I agree with it, but I do think about it a lot. So there's that.
Yeah. I think we kind of need to be more content with what we have in life.
Gratitude is so huge. Yeah, for sure.
I believe that 100%. Yeah. Whether that's through prayer or through like meditation or whatever, or I believe very strongly in gratitude, like gratitude breathing even, and gratitude, I should do that every day. I don't say I'm going to, but I think there's definitely
You know what?
something to it.
Meditation is like studying your scriptures. It's
Mhm.
really, really hard to get into the habit of it. But like once you do, people are like, oh yeah, it's the best thing ever, you know?
Yeah, for sure. That's cool.
So
So our podcast is called That's Church. And the reason that we did this is because we really believe that church isn't, or spirituality isn't always confined to a building. So we kind of like our That's Church is a lot of times in nature or art or food or, whatever it is. What is it that speaks to your soul outside of your faith or your spirituality?
outside of my faith and my spirituality, you know, I have always been so fascinated by anything that has to do with people. I love anthropology, I love sociology, psychology, the arts, anything that humans have created from absolutely nothing has always been so fascinating to me. I took 3 art history classes and like 6 sociology classes and 4 psychology classes in college. And like just humanities, studying how people tick and how we're creative and how we relate to one another and how hate works and how to counteract it and how to learn to love and all of those really, really beautiful parts about being a human, regardless of what faith you belong to, is something that has always been so deeply special to me.
That is beautiful. And you are definitely an intellectual, and it's so fascinating to hear you speak
I
and yeah.
thank you. I feel like more of a pseudo intellectual because most of my thoughts come from feelings and my perceptions, but maybe that's part of being an intellectual as well. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I heard somewhere that the smartest people are the kindest people. And that's always stuck with me because it's so true. Like when I really think of people who I would consider smart, I kind of do air quotes because smart is such an interesting word to me because it doesn't always to me mean intellectual. Sometimes it can just mean
Intelligence is
love.
something that is categorized in so many different ways.
Yes, there's so many ways to be quote unquote smart. But I have thought, like, who are the people I truly admire? They're the kind people. And you are definitely one of those people. And you kind of exude this light and kindness. And I really think that's what drew me to you that day in the store. And we talked for probably like half an hour. And
We did, yeah.
we just connected. And I can tell that you have that gift of connecting with people, whether it be people or animals or nature. You have that connecting gift.
I appreciate that. It's not something that is innate. Kindness is something I've had to practice. I mentioned being like a cranky, curmudgeon-y kind of lady.
Which is
But
surprising. I'm not picking up on that.
well, here's the thing. I am I'm using my podcasting manners right now. So that's probably why. And although I'm cranky, I'm very loving. My mom has always described me as like tender-hearted, which like I feel like fits the bill pretty well. Like if your mom doesn't know you well, who does, you know? But
I can see that.
but I really appreciate you pointing that out. It's something that I'd really had to work on, especially with being kind to myself. I have learned a lot of hard, difficult lessons because of really stupid choices I've made. And that kindness towards others has always come naturally, but the kindness to myself is something that I have to try with every single day. So thank you for pointing it out and reminding me that my kindness towards others is something I deserve as well.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That's so important for
I
all
love
of
that
us.
so much.
We can all, no matter how kind we are to ourselves, we can be kinder for sure. And
I know.
I guess.
Sometimes my partner will say something self-deprecating and I'm like, "Hey, do you know what happens to people who are mean to my friends and my loved ones? Stop being mean to my girlfriend or I will bite you."
Yes. Yes. Or you will summon an owl to slap.
Hey.
There you go. Scalped by an owl.
We're giving you new
tactic.
new tactics. As you were talking, I was looking up this quote by Lucille Ball because I love it so much. But the quote is, I love Lucy. I know it's cliche, but I do. I love her. But it says, love yourself first and everything else falls in line. You really have to love yourself to get anything done in this world. And I love that because it's like kind of shows her like sassy attitude too. But I believe that it has to start with ourselves.
That reminds me of a quote from RuPaul, like the drag queen.
Do share. Yes.
It goes, honey, if you can't love yourself, how the hell are you gonna love somebody else? I don't necessarily know if I agree with that, because like you can be so loving to other people but still struggle with self-loathing.
That's true.
Yeah, that is a good point.
So,
that is a good point. Yeah.
That being said,
you should love yourself.
You should love yourself. That's what it's saying. Like, it's possible, but it's not fair to you, you know?
Right. You still have to put your oxygen mask on before you can help anybody else.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I love that though. I love the sassiness in that too. Yeah. Getting all the sass at the end of this.
Love it.
So our last question is, and you know what? I think I already did this one for you because we were going to ask you like to share an embarrassing moment. Could answer this question. If you were a superhero, what superpower would you have and what would your name be?
Can I answer both?
Yes. Even better.
Okay. So first of all, here's the embarrassing experience. So I work retail. There was a gentleman who was looking for some merchandise on one of the shelves. And I was like, you know, like you walk up to him and you're like, hey, anything I can help you find today? And he was like, no, I think I'm finding everything all right. I say, okay, wonderful. Have a great day. I'll get out of your hair now. And I walk away. And as I realize what I said, I'll get out of your hair now, it connects with me that he's bald. So I was just like, oh, no, why did I say that? Like, he's probably used to hearing stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like, I just felt like, oh, why did it
exist? It's one of those things you think about later too, like that you get embarrassed about like later on throughout the day. That's me anyway.
Yeah.
When I'm like, oh, damn it.
Like you lay awake at night and you just feel yourself blushing. You're just like, no.
Yes. And you may not have even caught it. Like, you may not have even.
Probably not.
I thought you were, I'm surprised he didn't call you out. Like, excuse me.
No.
And then if I could have a superpower, it would be to talk to animals. I don't know if I'd want like a superhero name. I just want to talk to animals.
Okay.
That is so you.
Like if I could like have my cat specifically communicate like what he needs from me, that would be great. Cause like having him meow at me at like 3 a.m, like, what, do you want food? Do you need me to clean your litter box? Like, why is this happening? You know?
Oh my gosh. I love
I
cats.
don't know what you want.
Cats are so weird. And that's why I love them so much. I think I always say I'm like dog and cat, but I'm definitely a little more cat person because they're so off the wall.
I know. I am an animal lover through and through, but cats are hands down my favorite. My cat isn't actually living in the same household with me. He lives with my parents, but I currently live in a house with 4 pugs.
Oh, wow.
None of them are mine. I do love them dearly though. And one of them screams a lot. And if I could just like understand like what he please forgive me if you need to like beep this out while I make the pug noise. I just have to demonstrate. He's like, please do. It's hilarious. If I could just like sit down and talk to him like, hey, what is it? What do you need?
What do you need from me?
Yeah. Like, are you upset about something? Do you need a snack? Like, what's going on?
So funny. I saw a picture of one of them on your account today, and I was like, that is the cutest, ugliest little face I've ever seen.
Oh,
ugly and so cute all at the same time.
Oh, I know.
Ugly cuteness.
He's a sweetie. That one that I posted recently. They're all sweeties, obviously. Except maybe the puppy. She's a meanie. She'll just like bite on to like the face wrinkles of one of the other pugs and like draw blood. She's not nice.
Oh no. Yeah. It's always so sad when the little puppy is like playing with the older dog and the older dog is like, get me out of here.
Yeah. Oh man.
my daughter, I almost said my daughter. My animal, my dog.
Your dog daughter.
This cat. I never was a dog person. Like, we grew up with cats. I liked cats fine, but I always said I won't have them because I don't want like the hair in my house and stuff. But I like them a lot. But dogs, I just never understood dogs. We didn't really have dogs growing up. And so until after I moved out. Anyway, so, but then we got this dog and she is my daughter. She's my baby. But she just had surgery. She was spayed. And I'm like, I feel so sad that she doesn't know what's coming, you know? So I wish I could talk to her and be like, so just so you know, it's for your own good and this is what's happening. And, you know,
They're going to make you take a nap for a while. And then when you wake up, you're going to be hurting a little.
but she's like all excited to go to the vet. And I'm like, oh,
No.
And I'm like, you don't know what's coming. And then she's like, you'll be like, what did you do? Why am I in so much pain? I'm like, I can't jump and I
let her look at Todd so she associates the pain with him first.
Right?
Come on.
I've been smart about that.
It's so sad. That would have been a great superpower to have, though.
Great.
Yeah.
But what's her name, Ash? We got to make a name for her now.
Oh, I was gonna say Catwoman. That's
I
no.
was too. I was too, and then I was like, Cat Lady. No, that's like an old lady. Like,
these are both already themed.
Terrible.
Here's the thing.
Good at this.
The idea of a cat lady is a sexist trope meant to make women feel bad for not getting married, and I think it's nonsense. So if you want to call me Cat Lady, I will reclaim that.
Yes, reclaim that power. Yes. Honestly, that sounds like a great.
But I would also like to be able to talk to bugs too. You know?
Oh, right.
Like if a wasp is by me, I can just be like, "Hey, can I have some space?" You know?
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to kill you, but don't hurt me.
Yeah. Animal talker lady.
Oh, you're good at this, Sam.
I'm bad. We should ask our listeners. We'll ask our listeners. We'll come up with one better. I like that you're reclaiming Cat Lady, but yeah, it doesn't encompass it. It's not as comprehensive as we need it to be. So yeah, let's.
What's that one guy who taught Dr. Doolittle?
You miss
Mrs.
Women be doctors,
right? But then it sounds like
this is true. But I'm like thinking about just him.
That's too.
Yeah.
Dr. You could still be Dr. Doolittle.
Doctor. Yeah.
Do a lot.
You're reclaiming that one as well. You're reclaiming that one as well. Yep. That's it. Yeah. Those are great movies. Oh my god.
Do you have anything else you want to add before we end?
Thank you for having me on. I've really enjoyed this. It's been a delight sharing my faith with you guys. Thank you so much for being open and listening.
Yes. Thank you so much for chatting with us. It's always to be enlightening for a lot of people, I think, and very informational. So
hopefully, yeah. Thanks.
Thanks again for listening to That's Church. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Maddie's perspective on spirituality, nature, and the divine feminine is so unique and insightful. We were super intrigued. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at That's Church Podcasts for updates on all things That's Church. And remember, next week we'll be sharing all the highlights for our sold-out event and our episode with Ankar and Bryn. Thanks so much for listening, and until next time, keep finding church in all the unexpected places.